The world just changed, and most people have absolutely no idea what they're actually watching on their news screens right now. Those orange fireballs falling over Haifa, over Tel Aviv, over central Israel, the ones that look almost beautiful from a distance, those are not regular missile strikes. Those are cluster bomblets, dozens of them, hundreds of them, falling from a single missile that split open like an egg high in the sky, above the reach of every single air defense system Israel has ever built. Israel's own top missile defense expert, Dr. Uzi Rubin, said it plainly: after the cluster has opened, it's too late. The times of Israel. Too late. Think about that. By the time those fireballs appear in the sky, it is already over. There's nothing left to intercept. There's nothing left to shoot down. You are just waiting to see where they land. By the 10th day of this war, Iran had fired 300 missiles at Israel, and nearly half of them were carrying cluster munitions, which can spread dozens of explosive warheads over a radius of 10 kilometers. Al Jazeera, 10 kilometers. That is the size of an entire city district, covered in bomblets, from a single missile. And here is the part that nobody on mainstream television is explaining clearly enough. Iron Dome, Israel's famous, celebrated billion-dollar air defense shield, was never designed to stop this. Never. Not even once. Stay with me for the next 13 minutes, because I am going to explain exactly what cluster munitions are, exactly why they are shattering Israel's defenses, what Iran's strategic plan actually is, and what happens to this war if nobody figures out how to stop them. This is not a story about missiles. This is a story about a weapon that has fundamentally changed the rules of modern warfare overnight. Show map animation. Full Middle East. Overview. Iran highlighted. Missile trajectory arcs flying from Iran toward Israel. Split into multiple bomblet paths over Tel Aviv and Haifa. Scale indicator showing 10 km blast radius per missile. Before we talk strategy, let me explain exactly what this weapon is, because if you don't understand the weapon, you can't understand why this war just changed. Picture a regular missile. One warhead, one explosion, one target. Now forget that, because a cluster munition missile is something completely different. Here is how Dr. Rubin, one of Israel's own leading experts, describes it. A cluster warhead is a bomb which contains, instead of one big barrel of explosive, a lot of small bomblets. The tip of the missile, instead of containing a big barrel of explosives, contains a mechanism which holds onto a lot of small bombs. And when the missile approaches the target, it opens its skin, it peels off, and it spins around. And the bomblets are released into space and fall on the ground. The times of Israel. So imagine this. A ballistic missile, the size of a bus, flies from Iran toward Israel at thousands of kilometers per hour. It climbs into the upper atmosphere. Radar systems spot it. Air defense missiles are launched to intercept it. Aero system tracks it. And then, at high altitude above everything, before any interceptor can get close enough, the nose cone peels back like a banana skin. And suddenly, instead of one target, there are 40, 60, sometimes 80 separate bomblets, each the size of a small grenade, scattered across the sky in every direction. The bomblets weigh less than 3 kilograms each, about 7 pounds. They tumble through the air. At night, they glow like orange fireballs. And they are most dangerous to anyone caught in the open. Cars, storefronts, people who didn't make it to shelter in time. Wikipedia. Explosion footage. Slow motion footage of cluster bomblets falling over Tel Aviv skyline, orange glowing fragments visible against dark sky. Now here is where it gets critically important, because a lot of people are asking, but what about Iron Dome? Doesn't Iron Dome just shoot them all down? No, absolutely not. And this is the key misunderstanding at the heart of this entire story. Iron Dome is built to stop short-range rockets. That is what it was designed for. The Iron Dome is too low for that, Dr. Rubin said directly. The Iron Dome is not designed against that. It's designed against a short-range rocket. The times of Israel. So let's be very clear about what Israel's air defense layers actually are. Aero system, designed to intercept long-range ballistic missiles high in the atmosphere, in the upper layers of the sky. This is the system that should be stopping Iranian missiles. And it does, sometimes. But if the cluster warhead opens before the aero intercept happens, the mission fails. The payload is already spreading. David's Sling, designed for medium-range missiles and drones, important. But again, useless against bomblets that are already falling. Iron Dome, designed for short-range rockets from Gaza, from Lebanon, distances of 4 to 70 kilometers. These Iranian ballistic missiles are coming from about 600 kilometers away. Iron Dome was never part of this equation. Munitions experts explain that Iranian designers have probably turned to a high-altitude dispersal approach, specifically to minimize the chance of a successful ground-based interception. because the bomblets are small, falling at high speeds, and very difficult to track individually. The Washington Post. Iran did not stumble onto this weapon. They designed it specifically to defeat Israel's air defense architecture, layer by layer. Show map animation, Israel's air defense layers illustrated, Arrow high altitude intercept zone, David's Sling mid altitude zone, Iron Dome low altitude zone, then show cluster munition dispersal happening above the Arrow intercept zone, outside all 3 layers' effective range. Here is the strategic picture that most news channels are missing completely. Iran did not wake up in February 2026 and suddenly decide to use cluster munitions. This was years, possibly a decade, of preparation. This was a plan. Iran first demonstrated this cluster warhead capability publicly in June 2025, when it fired a cluster warhead ballistic missile into central Israel. Military analysts noted it at the time, but most media dismissed it as a one-off, a test, a warning shot. Now, in 2026, Iran has incorporated cluster payloads into a meaningful portion of its entire ballistic missile inventory. CNN, that is the critical word, meaningful portion. This is not a special weapon they pull out for rare occasions. This is now a standard part of Iran's missile arsenal. They have built an assembly line for these things, according to Wikipedia's documentation of the 2026 Iranian strikes. During this war, about half of the missiles launched from Iran were equipped with warheads carrying multiple cluster bombs. NPR. Half out of 300 missiles fired. That means approximately 150 cluster-equipped ballistic missiles, each spreading dozens of bomblets, each covering a radius of up to 10 kilometers. The math is absolutely terrifying. Red arrow on satellite image. Iranian missile factory locations marked. Missile test site in Semnan highlighted. Supply chain from Iranian defense industries to IRGC missile brigades shown. Now, let me explain Iran's tactical logic, because this is genuinely brilliant from a military engineering standpoint, even if what it's doing to civilians is horrifying. Iran has a problem. Israel, over decades, has built one of the most sophisticated air defense networks on planet Earth. Arrow blocks the big missiles. David's Sling handles the medium threats. Iron Dome sweeps up the small rockets. The U.S. has contributed over $1.6 billion to fund these systems. They work, most of the time. So if you're Iran and you want to cause damage in Israel, how do you penetrate a multi-layer shield that has been specifically designed and funded to stop you? Option 1, fire so many missiles at once that you overwhelm the system by sheer numbers. Iran tried this in previous conflicts. It works, sometimes. But interceptors are expensive. You need huge missile stockpiles. Option 2, bypass the system entirely by changing the physics of the threat. Instead of firing one big missile that their Arrow system can track and intercept, fire one missile that becomes 40 smaller threats at the last second. Faster than any radar can reacquire, faster than any interceptor can retarget. The core challenge, as Dr. Rubin explained, is simple. A ballistic missile carrying a cluster warhead must be intercepted before the payload opens and releases its submunitions. Once that happens, the missile is no longer a single target, and the chance of stopping its full effect drops sharply. The Times of Israel Iran chose option 2, and it is working. Watchtower Breaking Ground. Who are the U.S. Marines? Amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, spotlight on elite rapid response forces. The coordination with Hezbollah. This changes everything. Here is something even more alarming that the headlines are barely covering. Iran is not acting alone. Hezbollah has now fully joined this war, and according to national security experts, is now very well coordinated with Iran's missile barrages. Most of Hezbollah's rockets and drones are launched simultaneously with the Iranian missiles, said Kobe Michael, a senior researcher at the Institute for National Security Studies, speaking from his bomb shelter near Tel Aviv. Euronews. Read that again. Simultaneously. That means Israel's air defense systems, already stretched by the sheer volume of Iranian missiles, are now being hit from 2 directions at the same time. Iranian ballistic missiles from the northeast, Hezbollah rockets and drones from the north, on the same clock, designed to hit the same radar systems, the same interceptor batteries, at the same moment. The same expert confirmed that the north of the country, toward the Haifa area, is under heavy bombing, and that Israeli citizens have to spend most of their time in shelter rooms as both Hezbollah and Iran are deliberately targeting civilians and civilian facilities. Euronews. This is a coordinated campaign to exhaust Israel's air defense supply chain. Every Arrow interceptor missile costs between $2 million and $3.5 million each. Every David Sling interceptor costs around $1 million. Iran and Hezbollah are firing cheap missiles that force Israel to spend millions of dollars responding to each one. The math of attrition heavily favors Iran in the short term. Well, show map animation, dual front attack diagram, red arrows from Iran in the east, orange arrows from Lebanon in the north, both converging on Haifa and Tel Aviv simultaneously, air defense battery locations marked across Israel. Let me stop talking strategy for a moment, because behind all these statistics and military terms, there are real people dying in real cities. A couple in their 70s was killed in the Ramat Gan area near Tel Aviv. They had a safe room in their home but were unable to reach it in time, raising serious concerns that Israel's air raid sirens were not sounding quickly enough to give people the 90 seconds they need to reach shelter. Al Jazeera, 90 seconds. That is all the warning you get. And if the siren comes late, or doesn't come at all, 90 seconds becomes 0 seconds. A foreign worker from Thailand was killed by shrapnel at Moshav Adanim. 3 women at a beauty salon in a West Bank village near Hebron were killed when cluster munition debris struck them directly. Al Jazeera. A beauty salon. 3 women. A normal afternoon, shattered by metal fragments falling from the sky. A missile struck a building in Tel Aviv, killing 1 person and injuring dozens. Ben Gurion Airport was hit. 3 private planes were damaged on the tarmac. And Israel reduced the maximum passenger count on outbound flights to just 130 people per plane. Al Jazeera. Red arrow on satellite image. Crater in Ramat Gan Residential Street. Damaged apartment facade in Tel Aviv. Destroyed vehicles near beauty salon in West Bank. Damage marks on airport tarmac. But here is what makes cluster munitions uniquely horrifying. Even after the attack ends, the danger is not over. The submunitions fail to explode more often than other kinds of warheads. Unexploded ordnance can act like a landmine, detonating later and killing indiscriminately. The open source munitions portal has published several images of unexploded submunitions found in Israel in recent days. Wikipedia. This means that after every cluster attack, Israeli neighborhoods become minefields. Children come out of shelters, elderly people walk on streets, and the bomblets that didn't go off on impact sit there, in yards, on roads, and parks, waiting for someone to touch them, waiting for a child to pick up what looks like an interesting piece of metal. Cluster munitions pose a particular threat to the civilian population both during and after use, with victims often including a high proportion of children, according to the Convention on Cluster Munitions. Wikipedia. Amnesty International has condemned Iran's use of these munitions, targeting residential areas as a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law. The executive director of the Arms Control Association called the Iranian targeting of cluster munition warheads at residential neighborhoods deliberate, saying Iran appears to be launching them into relatively populated areas, probably with the goal of producing potential civilian harm. Al Jazeera. Show map animation. Unexploded ordnance risk zones overlaid on Israeli cities. Haifa, Tel Aviv, Ramat Gan, Beit Shemesh, marked in red.